He stands tall, strong, and in control, or at least shoulders squared, face calm, but inside, a storm brews. He may never say it. He may not even fully admit it to himself. But every man, no matter how confident, how successful, how spiritual, faces fear. Not the kind you see in movies with swords and battles, the quiet kind. These fears don't show up in loud cries or dramatic gestures. Instead, they hide in sleepless nights, quiet self-doubt, withdrawn behaviors, and relentless striving. Society often celebrates male strength, provision, and leadership, but rarely acknowledges the weight men carry in trying to live up to those expectations. The Bible doesn't hide these fears. In fact, it speaks directly to them. And today we'll walk through 6 of the deepest fears that men face, not just in modern times, but throughout all of Scripture. These fears are not signs of weakness. They are invitations to dependence on God. Let's unpack the 6 greatest fears many men face. Fears that often go unnoticed, but deeply shape their lives and choices. Number 1, fear of inadequacy. For many men, the fear of being not enough is a relentless shadow. Not strong enough, not smart enough, not rich enough, not successful enough, not giving enough. The fear of inadequacy stems from deep-rooted pressure to perform, to measure up, to constantly prove worth, whether in the eyes of a father, a boss, a spouse, children, or even themselves. Boys are often taught early to hide weakness and man up, unintentionally equating vulnerability with failure. As they grow into men, this inner narrative intensifies. It becomes a mental tape playing behind every decision, every conversation, and every setback. This fear can lead to chronic overachievement, unhealthy competition, emotional shutdown, or bitterness when efforts go unnoticed. Inadequacy isn't just a passing feeling. It's a lingering ache that says, maybe I'm not what the world needs me to be. I'm not enough. These words sit quietly in the heart of many men. Moses felt it deeply. When God called him to deliver Israel from Egypt, Moses responded not with excitement, but fear. Who am I that I should go? Exodus 3, verse 11. He stammered, he doubted, and he begged God to send someone else. Sound familiar? This is the fear that rises when a man feels unqualified for the role he's been given, whether as a husband, a father, a leader, or even a believer. But here's the truth. God doesn't call the qualified. He qualifies the called. To Moses, God didn't say, "You're capable." He said, "I will be with you." Exodus 3, verse 12. The answer to inadequacy is not more skill. It's deeper surrender to Jesus Christ as our sufficiency. Number 2, fear of failure. Failure, to many men, is more than a loss. It's an identity crisis. From careers and business ventures to marriage and parenting, the idea of failing brings with it shame, embarrassment, and a sense of personal defeat. This fear can be paralyzing, leading men to avoid risks, silence their dreams, or overcompensate with perfectionism. For some, the fear of failure leads to burnout as they push beyond human limits just to avoid falling short. For others, it fosters passivity, refusing to try because the cost of failing feels too heavy. What's worse, society often offers little room for men to fail gracefully. Instead, failure is interpreted as weakness, stripping them of pride and position. But the truth remains, failure is often one of life's greatest teachers. Yet men fear it because the world rarely allows them to fail without penalty. Every man dreads falling short. Failure can feel like the ultimate loss of identity. Peter knew this. He promised Jesus he'd never fall away, only to deny him 3 times when the pressure rose. Luke 22, verse 61 to 62. Can you imagine the shame? The feeling of having failed not just a task, but a person you love? And yet Jesus wasn't finished with Peter. After the resurrection, he restored him, not just privately, but publicly. Feed my sheep, Jesus said 3 times, offering Peter a new commission for every failure. John 21, verse 15 to 17. The gospel tells us this: failure is never final when God writes your story. At least with God, you can only fail forward and never backwards. Number 3, fear of loss of respect and value. Respect is the currency of many male relationships. Whether in the workplace, at home, or among peers, being respected is deeply tied to a man's sense of identity. The fear of losing that respect can be more painful than the fear of physical harm. When a man feels he is no longer valued, when his opinion doesn't matter, his effort goes unrecognized, or he's treated as irrelevant, it cuts deeply. This fear can manifest in various ways: over-assertiveness, harshness, or emotional withdrawal. It's not always about pride, it's about the fundamental human need to matter. For many men, losing respect feels like losing their voice in the world. And in a society where worth is often tied to status and performance, the line between identity and respect becomes dangerously thin. Respect is oxygen to a man's heart, and the fear of losing it, especially in the eyes of those closest to him, can be paralyzing. Saul, Israel's first king, crumbled under this fear. In 1 Samuel 15, when he disobeys God, his confession isn't about sorrow, it's about image. I was afraid of the men, and so I gave in to them. Later he begged Samuel not for forgiveness, but to honor him in front of the people. This is the danger of valuing appearance over obedience. When a man ties his worth to others' opinions, he becomes a slave to reputation. But God doesn't measure worth by applause. He sees the heart. He calls men to character, not performance. The man who fears God more than man will never be shaken. The fear of man brings a snare, but whoever trusts in the Lord shall be safe. Proverbs 29, verse 25. Number 4, fear of losing power or control. Men are often conditioned to lead, to fix, to protect, to be the anchor in every storm. But what happens when control slips away? Whether it's a financial crisis, a health issue, a crumbling marriage, or an unpredictable child, the fear of losing control haunts many men. Control gives a sense of safety and certainty. Without it, they can feel exposed, helpless, and inadequate. This fear is not about domination, it's about the desperate attempt to hold things together, to avoid chaos and maintain order. For some, it results in anger, micromanagement, or rigidity. For others, it becomes internalized as anxiety and self-doubt. Losing control feels like watching the very ground they stand on collapse, and it challenges their belief in their role as protector or provider. Men are wired to lead, to build, to protect, and when they feel control slipping through their fingers, fear rises. Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, stood atop his empire and said, "Is not this the great Babylon I have built? By my mighty power?" Daniel 4, verse 30. But God humbled him drastically. He lost his mind, his throne, and his dignity until he recognized God as sovereign. This fear shows up when a man can't fix the marriage, can't control the outcome, or can't steer the future. But Scripture reminds us, control is an illusion. God alone is sovereign, and sometimes God allows power to fall from a man's hand so he can learn to lift his hands and surrender to his sovereignty as the omnipotent. Number 5, fear of the future or uncertainty. The unknown can be terrifying, especially for men who feel responsible for shaping outcomes, providing for a family, building a career, securing a legacy. The future is filled with unpredictable turns: job loss, illness, financial strain, societal shifts. And while women may also fear uncertainty, men often feel it through the lens of responsibility. Will I be able to provide? Will I still matter? Will I be left behind? These unspoken questions create a low-level anxiety that can fuel restlessness, irritability, or overplanning. Many men suffer in silence because acknowledging uncertainty feels like weakness. Yet behind every confident smile or strategic plan may be a man who's quietly asking, what if everything falls apart? What lies ahead? Will I have enough? Will I be enough? These questions haunt many men, especially when they feel the weight of responsibility. Joseph must have asked these questions in the silence of a prison cell, falsely accused, forgotten by men, and uncertain about God's plan. And yet behind the scenes, God was weaving redemption. What looked like delay was preparation. What looked like silence was set up. Joseph later told his brothers, "You meant it for evil, but God meant it for good." Genesis 50, verse 20. The future is never uncertain in God's hands, even when it feels foggy in ours. Number 6, fear of a purposeless or unproductive life. Perhaps the deepest fear of all is living a life that doesn't matter. Purpose is the compass that gives direction to a man's soul. Without it, even success can feel empty. Men long to build, contribute, protect, and leave a legacy. But when that sense of purpose is unclear or threatened, it leads to a quiet despair. Retirement, job loss, broken dreams, or simply aging can trigger this fear. The thought of waking up every day without a meaningful reason to fight, serve, or grow is haunting. This fear often drives men to seek constant activity, achievement, or comparison. Yet the answer is not in doing more, it's in rediscovering who they are beyond their output. A purposeless life is not just boring to a man, it feels like a betrayal of who he was created to be. At the end of the day, every man asks, does my life matter? The fear of insignificance is real, especially in seasons where nothing seems to grow. Solomon, despite all his wealth and wisdom, once lamented, meaningless. Everything is meaningless. Ecclesiastes 1 verse 2. Why? Because he tried to find purpose in achievement without anchoring it in God. Productivity is not the same as purpose. A man can build empires and still feel empty. But when a man aligns his life with God's will, even the quiet, ordinary days have eternal weight. Whatever you do, do it all for the glory of God. 1 Corinthians 10, verse 31. The man who walks in obedience will never live a wasted life. In conclusion, the fears that men carry are not often discussed at the dinner table or in locker rooms, but they are real and they are powerful. These fears of inadequacy, failure, loss of respect, loss of control, uncertainty, and meaninglessness are woven into the hearts of many men who simply want to be enough, to be trusted, and to make a difference. The world doesn't need men who hide their fears behind silence or pride. It needs men who are courageous enough to face them, grow through them, and rise above them. Not as perfect beings, but as whole ones. Because true strength is not the absence of fear, it's the willingness to face it head on. If this message encouraged you, hit that like button, subscribe for more faith-based content, and share this with someone who needs to hear it. I'll see you in the next video. God bless you.
Please like, subscribe, and share.